Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's your boy Max here, and welcome everybody to a new YouTube video. The NHL is just about halfway through its season for the majority of the teams as we just finish up the All-Star festivities. For the Boston Bruins, they have played 43 games this season with a record of 26, 14, and 3, which is good enough for fourth in the Atlantic Division, second wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference. Because the first half of the season has concluded, I thought it would be a fun idea to go through some of the report card grades that I have given for each one of the NHL players we have seen play for the Bruins organization. Then near the end of the video, we're going to talk about some players that I could see moved heading into next month's NHL trade deadline and potentially what the Bruins could look for at that trade deadline. Starting things off with forwards, I've only given 3 forwards on this Bruins team an A or better. I've given a Brad Marchand an A+, Patrice Bergeron A+, David Passernack an A. Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron, they're the duo. They're the ones that everybody knows are going to be good night in and night out for the Bruins. Marchand, arguably a top 5 Hart nominee in my eyes as anyways. He's a top 10 player, again, in my eyes, in the entire NHL. Patrice Bergeron is my favorite to win the Frank J. Selke Award, which would be his record-setting Selke Award, his 5th in his career. And in my opinion, I think those 2 players have been the only forwards that have been consistent from the beginning of the season to now, and they are an A+ in my opinion. David Passernack, only an A, and the reason why I've given him an A is because it took him being demoted to the second line and a long stretch of where he didn't score, wasn't producing, and there was a lot of question marks about his game. He went on a tear in January, don't get me wrong, and that's why he is still an A, but I don't think he's quite at that A+ tier yet. By the second half of the season, by the end of the season, I think he very well could be pushed up into that A+ tier, but as of right now, I think he's still an A. I've then given 3 forwards on this team a B. I've given Taylor Hall, Oscar Steen, and Erik Haula. Now, Taylor Hall, he just signed an extension with the Bruins, and like David Passernack, he wasn't as consistent, but once he ended up playing with Passernack and finding some more consistent line mates, in January, he was playing at some elite hockey. So him being at a B, he very well could be an A- or even up to an A tier as the season goes on. But right now, I'm going to keep him as a B. Oscar Steen is a B because nobody expected him to play any first-line time, and he got some minutes. He's been a great addition because of injuries, and he's played his role and earned a spot on this team. And Erik Haula wasn't supposed to be a top 6 player, but he has centered that line with Hall and Passernack excellently, and I'm really happy that he's finding his groove there. And so I think, again, similar to Hall and Passernack, he can even excel past that B rating that he currently has. I've given some 4th liners B-, Thomas Nosek, Curtis Lazar, and Anton Bleed. These guys have been your 4th line type guys, although they haven't been the most consistent, and there has been some errors, mainly regarding penalties and stuff like that surrounding Anton Bleed. But I do think that 4th line has been good enough, and so I'm going to give them all B-. The other B- is going to be Jake DeBrusk. He honestly has played better than what I expected him to play, although we would still like to see a DeBrusk who scores a bit more and is a bit more consistent with his production. He still is playing at a level that we're not used to seeing him play going off of last season. He's skating a lot more. He's using his forecheck. He's playing at a level that you would hope a player who's requested a trade and wants out is going to play at. And hopefully for DeBrusk, he gets that trade he wants and the Bruins are able to get some pieces back. But in the meantime, DeBrusk is playing some great hockey. I've then given 2 players on this Bruins team for forwards a C. Charlie Coyle and Craig Smith. And a lot of this is not necessarily how they've played, but the expectations we had on them at the beginning of the season. Charlie Coyle came into this season with the loss of David Krejci as that number 2 center. And he has been demoted back to the 3rd line. Now, while he's played that 3rd line great, he is making a lot of money to be a 3rd line center, and he wasn't able to succeed as well at that 2nd line center, even when Hall and Passernack were on his wings. It wasn't until Erik Haula went up to that line that line started to succeed. Now, Coyle has done good on that 3rd line with DeBrusk and often Oscar Steen with the injuries to Nick Fellino, etc. But I'm still not super impressed with the production of Charlie Coyle, especially while the Bruins have been hot in January. So that's why he's only a C. And similar thing for Craig Smith. He hasn't had that same production that we hope from him, even when he has played on the first line with Bergeron and Marchand. And you, again, hope for a little more production coming from Craig Smith. Then Trent Frederick, I gave a C-. He's been out a lot of the year with injury, and just when he's playing, there's maybe 5-10 games maximum where he was putting out effort and he was actually a good piece to this Bruins team. Now, Bruins fans do have an attraction to Trent Frederick because he has fights and he's a tough guy. But at the end of the day, if you're not playing and if these fights are bad timing or just taking bad penalties, then you're not really helping the team at all. And finally, Nick Fellino, I've given a D. And this is big time production and for expectations. This was a big contract that Don Sweeney offered. In my opinion, it was the worst signing he gave last year in the offseason. He has been underwhelming, gone through a lot of injuries, and I know it's hard to justify injuries as a low grade, but again, same thing with Trent Frederick. If you're not playing on the team, it's hard for me to give you a good grade. I hope Nick Fellino can turn it around, and maybe he can be a good piece heading into the playoffs, but as of right now, I don't like the signing, and I'm going to give him a D. Going on to defenseman, Charlie Mcavoy is my only player that I'm giving an A+. He has been a phenomenal player. He's arguably a top 10 defenseman in the league. I have him around the 5 to 7 range, but wherever you want to put him, he's been a fantastic player. He doesn't put up a lot of points, and Bruins fans were hoping that he would score a bit more points, getting some more power play time. But either way, he has been fantastic for the Bruins. He has been their #1 defenseman by far, and that's huge going forward. Matt Grislick, I've given an A. And Matt Grislick, he seems to do a lot better with Charlie Mcavoy. He doesn't seems to. The statistics back it up. If you look up some of the advanced analytics, Matt Grislick plays phenomenal with Charlie Mcavoy, and arguably they are one of the best pairings in the entire NHL. But when he's demoted to guys like Brandon Carlo, he's not able to play his game as well. And again, he's also missed some time to injury. Although, again, by the end of the year, he could definitely be an A+. Right now, he's an A, and that's not a diss on him at all. Brandon Carlo is a bit of a tweener, and that's why I've given him a B. He has some good nights, and he's quiet most nights, but then there's some nights where he gets beat on the rush, or he makes a bad turnover, and there's just some mental lapses that are going around, so I'm going to give him a B. Mike Riley, I'm giving him a B-. I'm tempted to give him a C+. He's kind of borderline on that level for me. He's made some really bad mistakes. There was the Colorado Avalanche game where he took an unnecessary tripping penalty, and that costed the Bruins the game. Unnecessary turnovers. He just seems to have these mental lapses where he just has terrible defense, terrible decision making, and it ends up costing the team in a bad way. But similar to Brandon Carlo, when these two players play together, their play styles seem to be doing pretty good, but it's still not fantastic. Derek Forbort, I'm going to give a B- with Mike Riley as well. I think a lot of people haven't been happy with Derek Forbort, but he's scored a lot more goals than he ever has in his career, which I think is a bonus, and that goes above expectations we had. He's been the shot-blocking defenseman that we knew coming in. He's been a decent penalty killer. He's actually been a pretty good penalty killer for the Boston Bruins, who are near the top of the league in their penalty kill, and I don't think that's an issue going forward for Derek Forbort being a third-pairing guy. The issue is when Forbort was playing with Charlie Mcavoy in the first pairing, that wasn't good, but as a third pairing, shot-blocking defenseman who plays the penalty kill, I have no complaints for Derek Forbort, so I'm going to give him a B-. Conor Clifton, I'm going to give a C-. Conor Clifton really has not been that fantastic this season at all. The only reason why I'm not giving him a D like I did for Nick Fellino is because he has played at somewhat in an average, maybe below average level from when the Bruins have had injuries and COVID issues. He's been able to step in somewhat okay. Hits, which is something the Bruins do lack a little bit. So that's why I'm giving Conor Clifton a C-, but you can give him a D if you want to. Urho Vakanainen, right now he's currently injured, and we don't know how long he's going to be out. He suffered that upper body injury from the hit from Yanni Gourde against the Seattle Kraken. And Vakanainen, I think, was having a fantastic year. He looked much better than what he did last season. And I know he hasn't played a lot this season, but I'm still very impressed with him. And so I'm actually going to give him a B- as well. He hasn't been fantastic, but I think he's worked his way up into a top 4 role, hopefully of the future. But he could even be a trade piece as well. Jakub Zboril, before he had a season-ending injury, was playing very good as well. I'm going to give him a B- as well. Moving on to our goaltenders. The Bruins have had 3 goaltenders play a decent amount. I'm going to include Tuukka Rask in this. Linus Ullmark, I'm going to give him an A. Linus Ullmark, over this last stretch, for a good portion of the season, has been playing fantastic goaltending. So many people were hating on Linus Ullmark in that contract and that no-move clause as soon as he started to struggle a little bit. But all I kept saying was, give him time, give him patience. He's coming from a completely different system in Buffalo. He's not going to play at a Vezina caliber level the second he gets into Boston. And now that he's built up this momentum, Bruce Cassidy seems to be trusting him a bit more. He has a bad game, but he bounces right back with a much better game. And I'm impressed with how Linus Ullmark has played. Linus Ullmark, whatever you want to say. I keep mispronouncing his name. But he's played fantastic hockey, and I'm really happy going forward with him as the starter. Jeremy Swayman, while he's been sent down to Providence and then he comes back up, I'm going to give him a as well. I think this duo has been great. And honestly, Swayman before Tuukka Rask signed, I thought he was better than Linus Ullmark. And Swayman, it's unfortunate that he was the only one who didn't have waivers to be sent down to the AHL, because I would have rather keep Jeremy Swayman up in the NHL, mainly for his progression, for how young he is, and he was playing better hockey, in my opinion, than Linus Ullmark was. Looking at them now, I think they're both around the same level from the games that they've played, but Swayman just looks so calm, so poised, so relaxed in the net that I definitely think going forward, he's the franchise goaltender, and any talks regarding a Swayman trade is a bad idea, and I'm highly, highly against that. Tuukka Rask, I'm going to give a C-. Now, he has not looked good at all. The first few games, I was like, okay, well, we can sort of give him a little bit of a break. He hasn't played that much yet, and I'm not giving up on him by any means. I don't really have a choice to. The Bruins have signed him for the rest of the year. He doesn't have a no-trade clause, or he does, have a no-trade clause, so they're not going to flip him at the deadline. We're stuck with him, essentially, and he's injured right now. We don't know how long that's going to be, but it doesn't look like it's going to be for too long, so expect Tuukka Rask to be back. He hasn't been utterly impressive. He looks slow on his reaction time. His rebound hasn't been great. He's been allowing a lot of soft goals. Now, that could progress as the season goes on, but in the coming out of the All-Star break, you don't really have this time anymore to have bad goaltending performances. Every single point matters. And yes, I did say at the beginning of the video that I do think the Bruins are going to be a lock for the playoffs. You can't risk these things. You don't want to work to try to get higher in these divisional standings, and you don't want to just settle for the second wild card spot, because then you're going to be playing the Florida Panthers or the Tampa Bay Lightning at the top of the division. So that's my player grade rankings here at the All-Star break. Let me know what you guys think about these grades. And now going into the trade deadline, I know I talked by the end of the video, I will touch a little bit on what the trade deadline I think could look like for the Bruins. And I think defensive depth for the Bruins. While I did give a lot of these players B- and all that stuff, Urho Vakanainen is out right now indefinitely. We don't know there's no updates. Zaborov's out for the rest of the season, and I'm not a fan of Conor Clifton. So a nice right shot defenseman on that third pairing could potentially help this team going forward, and just cleaning up these mistakes that you see from Mike Riley, that you see from Brandon Carlo. And I would like to see these players do a little bit better. Again, Mike Riley, you could argue is a C+. You could argue Derek Forbort's a C+. And if you have three defensemen, Clifton, Forbort, and Riley, that are around that C+, C range, I don't think that's very good. And I think the Bruins do need to address that going forward. In talks of JT Miller, I think that's just too big of a price to ask for. Same with Jacob Chychrun. And I don't think it's necessarily a need the Bruins need. I don't think that they need that. I don't think JT Miller makes the Bruins much more of a cup contender than, say, Eric Howla does on that second line when you compare the need for defensive depth. But either way, trade deadline is still over a month and a half away, so a lot can change in that time span. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. If you did enjoy this video, please hit that subscribe button and hit that like button. It would help me a lot. I'm headed to Toronto later this year in July, and I would love to do some daily vlogs and grow this YouTube channel in the meantime. And if there's any other topics you would like me to discuss, whether it's Bruins, NHL related, anything like that, let me know down in the comment section down below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.